What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another weekly update. There's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, and before I get into the news though, I first of course have to announce that I'll be doing another live stream here. This time it'll be on Saturday, this coming Saturday here at 12:30 Eastern time, PM of course. And so come join if you can. We're going to be just hanging out, talking cars, answering all your questions, and just having a good time. But anyway, getting into the news here this week, the first very interesting kind of little surprise is that Subaru has teased that something new is coming for the BRZ here just on July 23rd, so in a few days here. So for now, all they're saying is that a sharper, more focused Subaru BRZ is coming, and then they showed a picture of the headlight here, which includes a little cherry red BRZ logo on the car, and the car appears to be World Rally Blue, so the fact that it is that normal color means this probably won't be any kind of special edition like they had, pretty commonly with the last generation BRZ with the different series, and those always had a unique color. The fact this is World Rally Blue means it's not going to be one of those. So as far as what it is, some optimistic people are thinking this could be a new TS. The BRZ TS for the last generation was basically just, a tuned by STI thing. It didn't get any extra power, but just had the big spoiler on the back, and it could be something like that. Some sportier suspension setup and the bigger brakes and all that. My more pessimistic, I would say more realistic thing is that this is most likely just going to be the performance package. I'm not sure why it would have the cherry red BRZ logo there. That is kind of the only mystery. But aside from that, we just saw the same package debut on the GR86, and last generation they both had a performance package. So it would make sense they're going to share that package again, and the fact that we just had that news a couple of weeks ago suggests that Subaru would be closely following that, and that is most likely what this is, which would mean all this is getting is Brembos and NACS stampers. So we will see, but could be more, could be less. We'll have to see. Thankfully, we only have a few days to wait. So, but moving on to some other stuff that was fully revealed this week, Hyundai has revealed the radically redesigned 2024 Santa Fe, and so to me, the front and the sides remind me a lot of the old Ford Flex, but in a good way. It looks cool, but it really looks a lot like a Flex in my opinion. Obviously modernized, but others are saying that it's got a lot of Land Rover Defender inspiration there, especially on the sides and on the inside. But let me know your thoughts on the styling in the comments below. But it's very bold and I think is going to be very divisive, especially the back end. Regardless, I just have to say I have an enormous amount of respect for Hyundai for being bold, being daring, not doing cookie cutter design language where everything looks the same in their lineup. And yes, they're chasing the trends of going for the rugged boxy thing, and yes, maybe they're taking some inspiration from Land Rover and others, but I just think that this is a really bold choice, and it's something that I think a lot of other car companies would not have the guts to do. So I got to give them a huge amount of respect for that. Anyway, the only other details we have so far are that the wheelbase is longer than the old Santa Fe, so interior space and handling should be improved. And we can see that it gets a pair of 12.3-inch displays and a curved enclosure, which looks very nice. We also can see a 2.5T H-Track badge on the back of the car, confirming that motor and the all-wheel drive system, of course. That motor is already in the current Santa Fe and everything except the 3 lowest trims, so I'm willing to bet it'll be the same for the new one. We'll see if maybe they push it up market and make that motor standard, or if they still have the slower, like 180 horsepower, naturally aspirated 4-cylinder as well. We'll have to see. But anyway, we're going to have more details next month during a debut they're going to be doing on YouTube, apparently. And, so Hyundai does these slow rollouts where they show you the styling first, give you a little more details, and then it's like another 6 months before we get US details half the time on the actual US version. But, so the beginning of the rollout here of all the info for the new Santa Fe. But great to see that very bold styling, and certainly let me know your thoughts in the comments there. Chevy this week has also debuted their own people mover here, the 3-row one, the all-new 2024 Traverse, which gets more truck-like styling here that everyone seems to want these days, as we just saw. And Chevy plans to justify that rugged look a little bit more, though, this time by offering a Z71 trim for the first time for the Traverse. So that one gets unique twin-clutch all-wheel drive system, all-terrain tires, a mild lift that gives it almost 1.2 extra inches of ground clearance. There's also uniquely tuned dampers with hydraulic rebound control, hill descent control, there's a terrain driving mode, and of course the unique styling and accents inside and out. All versions are on an evolution of the old Traverse's platform, meaning front-wheel drive as standard with all-wheel drive available on all trims. And Chevy told Car and Driver the wheelbase is the same as the old Traverse, so expect interior space to be similar, but that should be fine with it already seating up to 8 people and being pretty nice and big even for the current generation. And they certainly could grow it a little bit still, even if it's on the same wheelbase. And speaking of the interior, it gets a huge 17.7-inch touchscreen as standard, along with an 11-inch digital gauge cluster. If you watch these weekly updates pretty regularly, you might remember that I was talking about GM. There's a rumor that GM was going to be developing a new 2.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder. Turns out those rumors were true, and it's debuting here in the Traverse. So it's a downsized version of the 2.7-liter from the Silverado, and like in the Silverado, it replaces the old V6. So this only comes with this engine. There's no base engine. There's no V6 option anymore. It's just this motor. It has 315 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque, which is 5 more horsepower and 51 more pound-feet of torque than that old V6. And they also got rid of the 9-speed auto and went down to an 8-speed, and it'll tow up to 5,000 pounds. It gets lots of great safety tech as standard, but unlike other companies, Chevy is still going to be charging extra for adaptive cruise control, which is also going to put it behind the other competitors. We don't have pricing yet, but assuming it's priced comparably to everybody else, everyone else is going to give you adaptive cruise as standard for the most part, and you don't get it here as standard in the Chevy. The good news, though, is that if you don't mind paying extra for adaptive cruise, you can pay even more for Super Cruise, and it's really awesome that they're offering Super Cruise here in the Traverse. And if you are someone who does a lot of highway driving, the Traverse basically is now leapfrogged up to the front of the pack and will be the best choice for a road trip 3-row crossover, because no one else offers a hands-free experience in this segment currently. And so that is going to be huge. And yeah, it's awesome that they've rolled that out here to the Traverse. And so beyond that, they just are saying it's going to be arriving in early 2024 and will be built in Michigan. And there's no pricing for these yet, like I mentioned. So anyway, I think it's a really solid redo of the Traverse. And, hopefully they price it well and come in aggressive with the pricing there to make up for the fact that it doesn't have some of the standard features of the others. And hopefully it'll, be a good, solid competitor. And another GM vehicle that has unofficially debuted here this past week, thanks to the Chinese government's weird requirement where car companies have to submit pictures for public comment before debuting a car there. And so anyway, this time the vehicle we see is the new Cadillac Optiq, which is a new electric compact crossover to slot beneath the Lyriq. It's on the same platform as the Equinox EV and has the same wheelbase, but it is 1 inch taller and less than an inch bigger in length and width as well. And expect the same setup of either a front-wheel drive 200 horsepower version or a 290 horsepower all-wheel drive version, at least here in the States, which is almost a guarantee that they will sell this in the States. And China is supposedly only going to be getting it with front-wheel drive. There's two different ones. There's like a 200 horsepower one and a 241 horsepower one. But it's most likely we'll just get the base front-wheel drive one and then, upgrade to the all-wheel drive there. And I mean, it looks really nice though from what we can see so far. And we don't have any shots of the interior, but as far as the exterior goes, it looks really nice. And I'm sure, it won't be more than a few months before we get a full reveal of that, both in China and then hopefully here in the States as well. Mercedes this week has debuted the AMG versions of the GLC, and so we get the GLC 43 and 63 here again. So they both get downsized. So the 63 goes from a twin-turbo V8, and the GLC 43 loses its turbo V6, and they both go down to the M139 turbo four-cylinder that's already debuted in the C43 and C63, and they do the same power here, just like the last generation. Same powertrains, all mirrored, between the C-Class and the GLC. And so for the 43 version, that means 416 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, thanks to a mild hybrid setup and an electrically assisted turbo, all running through the usual Mercedes 9-speed multi-clutch to the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system. 0 to 60 happens in 4.7 seconds for that one. It also gets bigger brakes, of course, along with standard adaptive dampers, and rear-wheel steering is actually standard, which is a nice improvement over the last generation. It gets the usual AMG enhancements also to the outside and the inside styling, and there's no price yet, but that one will be arriving in early 2024. As for the 63 version, which is now called the GLC 63 SE Performance, meaning it gets that complicated setup of the Turbo 4 with a bigger turbo on it, combined with a 201 horsepower electric motor in the rear that has its own 2-speed transmission. And I talked about this whole powertrain back when the C63 debuted, and it sounds very complicated. Not a vehicle I'd want to own out of warranty. But anyway, all combined, it'll do an impressive 671 horsepower and 752 pound-feet of torque, which is way more than the roughly 500 horsepower of the old twin-turbo V8 and even its S version. So it'll do a 3.4 seconds 0 to 60, and it's a plug-in hybrid that uses a tiny 6.1 kilowatt-hour battery just to keep the back axle powered. But it is also able to send power to the front as well, so you can have all-wheel drive in the the electric mode that it does have, even though it's going to have a very short amount of range with a tiny battery. No range was given yet, but yeah, the 6.1 kilowatt hour rating guarantees it's not going to be very much more than a few miles, maybe close to 10 miles if they're lucky. It also gets all the same suspension enhancements as the 43, along with even bigger brakes. It also gets sportier styling inside and out that's pretty similar to the 63 version, so not a whole lot of visual distinction there, but it'll come later in 2024 as a 2025 model year vehicle, and there's no pricing, of course, for that one yet either. Mini this week has revealed the interior for the 2025 Cooper, and as you can see, it's pretty unique. It's got a unique round screen there that has, I think, probably the slimmest bezels in the auto industry currently, which is refreshing because every other screen out there these days has these really thick bezels still, and so great to see something that looks a little more modern. Unfortunately, though, that also now replaces the gauge cluster entirely and has all the basic car info there on that center screen, although it does look like you'll at least have a head-up display, so it'll do a better job of keeping you informed of the speed without having to look over to the middle, unlike the Teslas. And it is odd though that the head-up display is still a pop-up little piece of plastic there. It's you would think they'd be able to do the projector thing like everyone else does. I thought the pop-up screen thing was just kind of like a cost-cutting measure way back when. Maybe they're still just wanting to keep costs low, and so they're doing this instead, but just seems kind of an odd choice there to still have that. And there's a few buttons and toggles for gear selection, drive modes, and other safety functions, but that's about it. The steering wheel's new though, and has a comically big 10 and 2 notch section there for some odd reason. I guess they must have let the BMW designers into the design studio at Mini here for a little bit too long, and they're like, "Whoa, let's do giant 10 and 2 notches for a tiny little Cooper that'll maybe have 200 horsepower." That's a bizarre choice in my opinion, but anyway, it's a cool steering wheel nonetheless. And there's also lights that do animations through the fabric on the dash, and apparently there's other cool features we don't know about yet. They're slowly rolling out all the info on this Cooper, and hopefully we'll have a full reveal sometime later this year, but there's no date given, I don't think, yet for that. But anyway, interesting to get that first look at that. And for another really fun small car that also debuted here fully this week was the Ariel Atom 4R. And so it builds upon the already very fast Atom 4, but makes the performance even crazier. It's still using the Honda K20 turbo 4-cylinder from the Civic Type R, but bumping its power from 320 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque to 400 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, thanks to a new tune and better cooling hardware. It gets a new 6-speed sequential gearbox, which helps along with the extra power to drop the 0 to 60 from an already insane 2.8 second time down to under 2.7 seconds, and a 0 to 100 mile per hour time now takes less than 6.5 seconds. And they also changed up the suspension, swapping in some new Öhlins dampers and springs, and swapping Brembo brakes for AP Racing, 4 piston calipers and carbon ceramic discs, all while weighing around 1,250 pounds. So, I mean, 400 horsepower and something that's half the weight of a Miata is just wild. And so lastly, there's carbon fiber wheels, and combined with the suspension changes and other carbon fiber pieces everywhere else, it's now 57 pounds lighter than the regular Atom, which is, again, a lot of weight to take out of a car that's starting with a very low amount already. And refreshingly, because it's so simple, it's not super expensive, starting at about $85,000 at the current conversion rate. It's a British price that they've given so far, so it might change for the US, but around 85 grand roughly. And I think they brought 10 of the last 3 Rs to the States, so not sure if they did that deliberately or that was just the amount of people that wanted them. I don't know. It's obviously very small, production stuff, but it's awesome that you can get this thing for hopefully well under 100 grand. And you have, hypercar beating performance here, and this will be just a blast on track, I'm sure. So I think they will be bringing this one to the States too, for those that want one. And anyway, very cool to see that. And another insanely fast car that we got a few more details on here this week was the successor to the Bugatti Chiron. So Autocar sat down with Bugatti's designer, who just announced that he's retiring after 19 years at Bugatti. And so he revealed to them that the car is finished. We delivered the prototype tooling a couple of months ago, and the production tooling will be delivered in a couple of months from now. He said it'll be debuting next year, but production won't begin until 2026. I guess that's because they probably have some backlog of, I think they still have to build some of the Bully Days and the Mistral, I think, and then they'll be able to build this. But anyway, this will be using a hybrid V8 they've also revealed as well, and a new chassis that Autocar expects will be a little leaner than the Chiron, thanks to, again, that much smaller engine. And the new designer who's taking over from this other guy has teased a little more here about the car, saying it's going to be amazing proportionally, technologically, in terms of innovation, in terms of unexpectedness. It's going to blow people out of the water completely, and it's a true joy to work on this, which is about as exciting as you can say for a teaser. So that's awesome. Of course, this thing's going to be insanely expensive. I think the estimates are around 5 million euros, so over $2.5 million to start. Of course, it doesn't matter for people to buy these, but for that insane amount of money, hopefully it is insane still with the performance. And so anyway, that's all they're sharing for now, but it sounds very promising, and it's great to hear that we're not going to have much more than maybe a year or maybe even a little less for that full reveal. So great to see that. And lastly, Nissan this week has announced that they're the next company here to make the switch here from CCS to the NACS Tesla connector. And they've also they're the first Japanese company to make that announcement as well. So like the others, 2025 is when all the Nissan products will be switching over from the CCS port in the vehicle to the NACS. I believe these are all 2025 calendar year, so we're talking most likely 2026 model year vehicles. And starting next year, they'll be able to have access to the Tesla supercharger network like everybody else. And also Nissan has said along with that new Arias that are purchased next year will include an NACS adapter, so you can use the network. So others, I think, we're saying, oh, we'll probably sell one to you if you want it, but it sounds like Nissan is potentially throwing it in for free, which could be nice because, a good adapter probably won't be super cheap. So this is great to hear that they are going to be including that there and recognizing that, hey, look, we're in this transition period. We'll help ease you through it by at least throwing in the adapter for free. So that's nice to hear. And so yeah, interesting to hear that. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Matt Moran Motoring Club. So we did have a few people that were able to rejoin thanks to Kyle's membership gifts here in the last live stream. So 4 people were able to rejoin, and we also did have 1 new member that was able to join for the first time as well. So I want to give a big welcome here to Darcy Oberlin for becoming a member. So I hope you're enjoying the perks so far, and hope I'll be able to answer some of your questions potentially here in the live stream on Saturday if you can join, where those members do also get priority answering during those live streams. So for anyone else that'd like to join, get that priority answering and all the other perks that are associated with the memberships there, there's always going to be a link in the description as well as join buttons here on the video page and on the channel page. But anyway, thank you all very much for your support. Not only those of you who are members, but also everyone who watches these videos every week. I really appreciate it. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.